There has been an awakening. Have you felt it? Hey everyone, Hobbs Yoda here. Back with my video series of ranking and reviewing the Star Wars films. And today we are going to be reviewing my number 3 spot on my list from worst to best. That's right. Today we will be reviewing, you guessed it, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Woo! So yeah, this should be a controversial one, especially where, as to where I ranked it on my list. I know there's probably a lot of people right now who'd be like, holy shit, are you serious? You ranked one of the sequels in your top 3? And you know what? Yes, I did. Okay. Yeah, again, you can say what you will about the sequel trilogy. It was a mess. It was definitely a mess. I mean, there's still plenty of stuff that I liked, in it, but it was definitely overall a mess. And I think they were great executed films on their own, but overall as a story arc in a trilogy, the prequels were definitely better in that regard. But I feel like The Force Awakens did start us off so strong. And that's the thing that really sucks the most for me about the sequel trilogy overall ending up being such a mess and having no, oh my gosh, no coherent story. Is because with this movie, I feel like it did start off so well, and then Disney unfortunately didn't have a plan after that. We brought J.J. Abrams to, set up this new trilogy, which is all he was originally ever supposed to do, and then they didn't plan anything out as to what was going to happen, with the rest of the trilogy later on, and then they had to bring J.J. back, of course, to try to, somehow wrap it all up. But originally, J.J. was just supposed to open up the trilogy with this movie, and that was it. And I feel like he did a really good job at doing that. Which is why it's a shame, again, that there was not, a whole coherent plan going into the whole trilogy as a whole. Because he did a good job setting up this movie, I feel like. So again, say what you will about the sequel trilogy. And yes, coherently, it wasn't as good as a story as it could have been. But I don't, feel like we should take hits, on this film because of that. Now, I know that's not the main reason this film takes a lot of hits, and of course, obviously not the main reason it took a lot of hits when it came out. The main reason this film gets so much backlash is because people call it, a rehash and a copy of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Which, yeah, there definitely are some similarities. I mean, they keep most of the same formula throughout the movie. But this film, I have a weak spot for it, because this film not only helped awaken my love for Star Wars again, but was also the film that introduced, a lot of my family into Star Wars as well, like my younger siblings and stuff, got them into Star Wars. And, when you're freaking doing a sequel to Episode 6, Episode 7, when you're doing a Star Wars sequel that is not only having to entertain the people of this generation, introduce it to the people of this generation, but also pay homage to those of the old, I mean, I feel like, you gotta play it safe. And they did, so I can see why they took some of that basic formula from A New Hope. But there's still so much, new stuff that was introduced in this film that I absolutely love. This was the first Star Wars film, for example, that humanized the Stormtroopers, which I thought was so cool. The opening sequence and crawl has to be, probably the opening sequence of this movie. Not the crawl, but the opening sequence of the movie is probably, my favorite opening sequence in any Star Wars film. And the crawl is so good, too. One thing I love about Return of the Jedi is the opening crawl, starts off saying, Luke Skywalker has returned home, talking about how he's going to Tatooine to try to save Han. But this one, it starts off, it immediately hooks your interest because it starts off with Luke Skywalker has vanished, and you're instantly just like, oh shit, what is going on? What has happened? And the opening sequence is so good, as I said. It starts off, with Kylo Ren completely, pretty much destroying and raiding this village. And it, as I said, humanizes the stormtroopers for the first time because you see Finn. We later find out this is his first mission, in battle mode. Because before he was sanitation on the ship, and you see the stormtroopers be humanized for the first time because you see Finn, so nervous to engage in this battle, and then you see him sorrowing over the death of another fallen stormtrooper. You realize for the first time ever that and they portray it for the first time ever that these guys are people too. These are people with lives, That was never really portrayed in the original trilogy at all. Life didn't really seem to be a care at all of interest. It was like, yeah, we just blew up the Death Star with a few thousand, hundreds of lives in there. That's fine. But this one, yeah, you see the stormtroopers humanized for the first time, and Finn had such a great story arc in this movie. Again, say what you will about the sequel trilogy as a whole, because it's a shame that there was really much for Finn to do later on in future movies, but in this film, they set up such a great story arc for him. And yes, again, as I said, this film does have a lot of similarities with A New Hope, but it introduces so many great new characters at the same time. As I said, you get Finn introduced, who has an amazing story arc. You get the new character of Kylo Ren introduced, whose conflict to me is just so fascinating in this film. I mean, Kylo Ren, Adam Driver, who does a fantastic job at portraying Kylo Ren in this film, finds it that a villain is more, interesting, when they don't see themselves as the villain, when they have, their own personal conflict and stuff. He said that when in interviews and stuff, saying that, he doesn't think Kylo Ren sees himself as the villain in his side of the story. So that's always interesting, because it makes the villain more human. Oh man, wow. The struggle that Kylo Ren has in this movie is so cool because it's like kind of polar opposite to Anakin. Where Anakin always had problems being drawn to the dark side. Kylo's, is having problems being drawn to the light. So it's interesting. It's fascinating to me. He really is a really cool, conflicted character. I really thought the portrayal of him in this movie was really cool. And then you have Rey introduced, who I really liked at first too. I felt like she's great in this movie. Again, a shame she didn't have too much of a coherent story arc, in the following movies. But in this movie, she's introduced as such a cool character. I feel like her whole, the whole message of her character is, that she's somebody, that's trying to find self-worth, ultimately. That scene is so powerful when we first see her on Jakku, scraping down or whatever, all that metal that she has, all that scrap, and she sees this old lady doing the same thing, and you can see her staring intently at this old lady, and you realize that she sees herself. She's looking at her future. If she stays on this planet, she sees herself, forever staying a scavenger, and her parents abandoned her, so she's like this character that's trying to find her purpose in the galaxy, which is really fascinating to me. Someone that's trying to find their self-worth is a character that can be so relatable to, and I felt they did a really good job with that. And Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron in this movie had so much dang charisma and stuff that they originally were supposed to kill him in the first act of this movie, but kept him alive because he's just so dang good in this role. I absolutely loved it. And of course, the chemistry between him and Finn was absolutely amazing. And one key difference I liked, that's the key difference between this movie and A New Hope, is that everything in this movie just seemed to be the Force calling to them even more, because it was so cool how it was all set up by coincidences. Rey wouldn't have ended up helping the Resistance if it wasn't for, Poe coincidentally getting captured, and then coincidentally, saving Finn, and then them coincidentally crashing on Jakku with the droid that has the map to Luke Skywalker. Just all these coincidences is what, led Rey into this thing. And you can really see it as like the Force, calling to her. It's awesome. I feel like one thing this trilogy has done well, and that was especially well in this film, is that you can see In that sense, Kylo Ren has turned to the dark side. You can see that the Force really is trying to bring balance back to itself by calling the light, within Rey and summoning her somehow. It's really cool seeing how she is pulled into this. And again, I think her character of someone trying to find self-worth and her what she's supposed to play in this whole thing is really a relatable character. And I feel like they do a good job of playing homage to like the old characters as well. I love seeing Leia as the general now. Like that's really cool. And Han, he started off as someone that would never die, that would never fight for a cause. And in the end of Return of the Jedi, he ends up being a war general, which is awesome. But in this movie, his character just becomes even more awesome for me. Because not only did he start off as a guy that would never die or fight for a cause, but he ends up being a guy that would die and sacrifice himself for his own son. And it was just such a cool conflict to see. And that scene was so powerful. I think the lighting is done really well in this movie too. That scene is so tense, between when Han meets his fate, between him and Kylo Ren, and he's trying to get Kylo Ren, when he's trying to turn Kylo Ren back to the light, when he's trying to get his son Ben back, and you can see the conflict within Kylo Ren, and him saying that he knows what he has to do, and you think, oh, he's gonna turn back to the light, and then you see the lighting change, and the sky just darkens, and everything turns red. And then he just ignites his lightsaber. It's just so well done. The lighting is great in this movie. The transition shots are so great. The transitioning in this film is fantastic, which is a shame. Because J.J. Abrams' other movie in this trilogy, Rise of Skywalker, is kind of really choppy and all over the place at times. But this one is just transitioned so smoothly, scene to scene, and I really love the lightsaber battle at the end as well. One of the main complaints people make about this movie is with the end lightsaber battle. They're like, so Rey, she's brand new to this thing, and she already somehow outbeats Kylo Ren in a lightsaber battle. Someone, who's had some training already when Rey has had none, supposedly. Listen, they spend this whole movie showing you how powerful Chewie's bowcaster is. It takes out like 3 stormtroopers at once at one point. And Kylo Ren ends up getting shot by this thing after he kills Han Solo. And we see him like bleeding out in the freaking woods. This guy looks like a freaking badass, guys. He's freaking bleeding out in the woods, freaking trying to keep himself together here, like patting himself and stuff, and still takes on Rey and Poe. Like, I think he did pretty good considering he just got shot by a bowcaster, I think he holds up pretty well for himself. And I love this lightsaber battle because for the most of it, if you really analyze it and watch it, you can see that Kylo Ren is practically just playing with both of them the whole time. You could tell that if his intent was to just straight up kill Rey, he would have. But I'm fascinated by their connection in this film. Rey doesn't find out that she has the Force until earlier on when Kylo's trying to get information from her mind about the whereabouts of Luke Skywalker on the map. And by him doing that, when he plugs into her mind, she finds out that she can plug into his, she finds out that she's Force sensitive too. And it's awesome how this new Force ability of hers that she realizes she has fascinates Kylo Ren to the point where he is just so fascinated by her, where you can tell, again, if you analyze this lightsaber battle, that he's playing with her, and that if he really wanted to kill Rey right then and there, he probably could have. But it's the fact that he's so fascinated by her and sees something in her that, he sees that it has potential, and he sees it as someone that can, help him probably. The whole battle, he's talking to her, telling her that, she needs a teacher, like he can teach her the ways of the Force. So I think that was really cool. That's one thing I do like about this trilogy, was the whole dyad Force connection between Rey and Kylo. I found it really interesting. And, a lot of people give Rey crap in this film too, because again, she's never been trained before or heard any of this stuff, but she has said that she's heard legends about it, because that was a perfect way to introduce the old characters into our generation. Is that, of course, of this new generation, they're just legends, because we find out earlier in the film that she has heard about all the old Jedi stories. How when she first hears about the map of Luke Skywalker, she's like, I thought he was a myth. So of course she has heard about this stuff before. And one of the scenes that people give Rey a lot of crap for is when all of a sudden she's able to use, a Jedi mind trick on one of the stormtrooper guards to let her free at a Starkiller base. And people are like, well, if she hasn't heard of this stuff before, or if she hasn't just now realized she had Force powers and hasn't trained at all, how is she able to do that? Well, she just found out she was Force sensitive because of Kylo Ren. again. And if she's heard that Luke Skywalker is a myth, if she's heard about him before, then she's obviously probably heard about Jedi mind tricks and all that other stuff. So if she just found out that she's Force sensitive, of course she's probably going to try that. If she's being held, prisoner by a stormtrooper, of course she'll probably try it. And you can tell in the scene after she does it that she herself is surprised that it worked too. She's like completely caught off guard by this. So I thought her performance and all the new characters introduced in this movie and all the acting performances were really well done, and I feel like they set up the new trilogy really well. Again, it's just a shame that most of those new characters, pretty much everyone but Kylo Ren, didn't really get to have a full coherent story arc, after this film. But the setup for them in this movie, I feel like, was so good and definitely left us with plenty of questions and places that we could go for the new trilogy. And again, say what you will about where that went and what you want about the new trilogy, but I feel like this movie was a fantastic opening, and again got some of my younger family into Star Wars, which was awesome, and really brought back my love to life of Star Wars again. And it's a really fun film to watch all the way through. As I said, it's transitioned really well, and the first 45 minutes of this movie feel like a roller coaster. You were on the run the whole time, and the last lightsaber battle sequence I absolutely love, as I said. Now I know another problem people have with this movie is that they introduce it's so similar to New Hope. They freaking introduced a new Death Star. I actually kind of like Starkiller Base, the fact that it's this planet, and it didn't bother me much because it was part of the side story. So that's why it didn't bother me as much. But I understand, of course, the criticism of it. But I actually kind of found it cool that it wasn't just a Death Star system, this thing that they built. It was actually a planet, using the sun for energy. And of course, it had the laser beams like the Death Star did. But one thing that was really cool was how they showed the faces of the people to make it more impactful. They showed the faces of each planet before they met their demise by the laser beams, which I thought was cool. And of course, they can blow up 5 planets this time. And they do even point that out in the film, though, that it is pretty much a Death Star Han Solo. And it was a side story plot point, so it didn't really bother me that much. Now, one character though that was pretty underutilized was Captain Phasma. I will admit that. She was still a cool character to me, though, in the film. It is a shame that she was kind of wasted and thrown away for a joke. Hey, yeah, remember that trash compactor thing for episode 4? Yeah, let's just throw her down that. And it kind of is made so easy to shut the shields down for the Starkiller Base. Because it's really? We're here to shut down the shields and no one's alerted that the shields are shut down? We've had 3 of these things, people! Come on! So, yeah, I think her being introduced as a captain and stuff, I think she was a really cool looking character, and it is a shame that she didn't get utilized as much, but all the other characters, again, introduced in this film, I absolutely loved. So for me, Star Wars The Force Awakens gets 4.5 Kyber crystals. But yeah, let me know y'all's thoughts on Star Wars Force Awakens. I would love to discuss it with you in the comments down below, and I'll see y'all for my next video in this series when I rank my number 2 spot. And see y'all in the next video. Peace.